Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the P. Carroll Sport Podcast with myself, Paul Carroll, back in 2026 to talk Tipperary hurling. We've had a bit of a 2-3 months off since the county final. That was our last podcast, and much has changed. We'll get through all that, and still, as always, lots to look forward to in Tipperary. So, over the course of the next however long this is going to take, we'll talk down through the Tipperary Senior Hurling panel that was announced earlier today. We'll talk through the league, some general thoughts. I'll talk a bit about the Harty Cup as well. I was at that match last Saturday as well. So plenty to talk through. Great to be back for another year. And yeah, it doesn't feel like it's long coming. It doesn't feel like an awful long time ago where we were kind of basking in the glory of the All-Ireland win. And now we're back at the bottom of the mountain alongside everyone else trying to climb back up with Tipperary this year. There's loads to look forward to, loads to talk through, and just some general reminders here on the channel. Like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll be doing videos, podcasts, trying to do a bit more this year than other years. We're going to be doing stuff every week on the channel, so it's all free. Subscribe to the channel and like the video, and that'll help me out. But yeah, trying to do a bit more, be a bit more active maybe on TikTok and Instagram as well, and over on Twitter. That's all at P Carroll Sport if you're not following me there already. So yeah, if you're new around here, this is going to be coming up every week, at least once a week, and after the games we'll do a review of all the games. So after the game on Saturday, we'll get a review out. I'm actually fairly busy this weekend. I'm commentating on Tip against Galway on Saturday, of course, at 7 o'clock. Then actually Sunday, I'm on an early flight over to London. The Tip footballers are playing London in the National Football League over there at 1 o'clock on Sunday. So that's going to be a busy weekend for me. So the podcast will probably be Monday evening by the time I get to recording it, unless I record it on the move. So it'll be a different setup than here. So yeah, that's kind of a bit of groundwork. But let's just get straight into it. The Tipperary panel was named today for the National League. I'll pull that up. You can see it on your screen. I just need to pull it up on my screen. So this is it. The Tipperary panel. I didn't count sure. I think it's 43 players in total. There's 12 to 14 new names. Conor Martin and Paddy McCormack were both on the panel at different times last year, well, throughout last year. So they're not new names. So basically it's 12. So we'll go down through it, the new names here. I'll pull up this screen I have. No, not that one. Those are the fixtures. So I have some ones to watch and things that we'll get to in a little bit as well. So the new faces here for Tipperary, 14 of them as I've down, but you can see I have the asterisks there beside Paddy McCormack and Conor Martin. So there's Adam Ryan, Paddy McCormack, Conor Martin, Stephen Tobin, Cathal English, Jack Leamy, Cathal O'Reilly, Adam Daly, Brian Hogan, Joe Egan, Paddy Creedon, Kevin McCarthy, Keith Ryan and Aaron Morgan. So if we look at it again, we'll start going down through them here. So Paddy Creedon is an interesting addition. He's so athletic. He's a big, strong fella. Like, he played in some of the pre-season games already with Tipperary, and you can kind of see, like, geez, this lad, he looks like an inter-county player. He has that build, and he was in with the footballers, really talented footballer as well. He was in with them a few years ago, and he's one of those players you can kind of identify and say, if you can get good training into this lad, he's a threat, because not many people have that build, and it's not like he's this big, like, messy, fumbling, massive fella or anything like that. He's an athlete, so there's a lot you can do with him. Adam Ryan from Arvale Rovers is a really interesting addition. He's still so young. He was on that 2024 All-Ireland minor winning team. He kind of was in the starting lineup for the under-20s last year then as well. He's under-20 this year and again next year, so really, really young. I wonder, there's 3 people from that minor team of 2024 with the famous 13 players. There's 3 of them on the panel, Cathal O'Reilly from Holy Cross being one of them, and Stephen Tobin as well from Carrick Swan being the other. And, it's really interesting to see how Liam Cow will manage those. I don't know, will they get game time? Like, they're very young. Like Darren McCarthy, he wasn't even on the panel at that age, was he? I'm trying to think now. When he came up from minor, he had that year. No, I don't think he was on the panel at that age. So that they're even younger than Darren McCarthy. I think Darren McCarthy was kind of had a possibility. Now, I could be getting that wrong. Last year was his first year, yeah. And he's over age, yeah. So they're a year younger than Darren McCarthy, like, when he came on. So will they get game time? I don't know. They're obviously extremely talented players, but it could just be a thing of similar like we saw with the likes of Arno Halloran and who else last year would have been Conor Martin, who would have been in around the panel training away and then went back to the under 20. So it could be something similar like that. So let's see how that plays out with Adam Ryan. Now Adam Ryan is a big fella for his age. Stephen Tobin, you all know I'm a massive fan of him. I think he's one of those. Stephen Tobin just has the kind of look to me of a Tipperary forward. He's really classy. He works really hard. He's got huge kind of skill and just has that little bit of flair that we like to see in Tipperary forwards. So he's certainly one to watch, one I'm a big fan of. And we all know Cathal O'Reilly, the captain of the Miners from 2024. And his man-marking ability, his ability on the ball, just an incredibly, really good hurler. So will those lads get game time? I could be sitting here doing the review saying that one or two of these lads started, but I kind of have a suspicion that maybe we won't see them, that they'll just be kind of training away in the background, and then they'll be ripe and ready to go for the under-20 championship, and then maybe see after that where both panels are at. So it's really good to see those lads in, so much potential for the future. Let's go down through the rest of some of the other names that are in there. Joe Egan, another one of the under-20s from last year. I'm a big fan of Joe Egan. I kind of see Joe Egan as almost almost like a Gearóid Hegarty style figure, and I'd say similar with Cathal English. Both kind of big half forwards, can get through an awful lot of work. Joe Egan maybe has that little bit more, maybe a little bit more hurling in him, I would think, maybe just kind of striking and touching, that sort of thing. Now, I could be wrong with that, but that's just how I've seen him play in the last couple of years. I think he's really talented, and I think, again, another one of these players that a year or two in the Tipperary senior panel just training will bring him on an awful lot. Big fan of Joe Egan. Conor Martin, another star of that under-20 team from last year. A brilliant forward. He scored a goal in that final last year. Just really good running with the ball. He's a scorer. You saw what he done for Kappa White this year, was putting up huge scores for them. But in the preseason games that we've seen so far, he's kind of been deployed as a cornerback. So that's not something we would have seen before. Like Robert Doyle, people are like, oh God, he's a forward and he's playing in the backs. But a lot of his underage career with Tipperary, he was playing in the backs, where you can't say the same about Conor Martin. He's always kind of been midfield, half forward. So it's going to be interesting to see where Liam Cahill deploys him. And I have a feeling that we might see Conor Martin playing against Galway on Saturday. I could be wrong. I've no inside knowledge here on how things are going in training or anything like that, so I'm just on the outside looking in at the minute. But just from the preseason matches we've seen, Conor Martin has been operating in that full back line. So let's see what happens there. Another new addition is Jack Leamy from Golden Kilfeacle. What a year he had with Golden, of course the county intermediate champions. Was in around the panel a couple of years ago. Never really kind of broke onto that next level, and in terms of getting game time, but we've seen him get game time already in the preseason tournaments. Really good kind of dead ball striker, really good forward, and a good runner with the ball as well. If you remember, was it one of the goals he got in Cashel in the county final, where he just kind of takes it on the run and he's kind of gone, and he's a strong fella. So let's see how he gets on. And then another lad that played in that intermediate final was Adam Daly. Put up some monstrous scores. I think, did he score like 5 points from play against Bursakane in the first half of like the intermediate quarter-final or semi-final last year. Really good striker from distance. We've seen him with Cashel Community School in the Harty Cup a couple of years ago, with the Tipperary Miners in 2022, and also with the Tipperary under-20s last year. Big fan of him. Probably needs a year or two. He's a good size fella, but probably needs a year or two to just kind of pack on the S&C and maybe get up to the level. But he's a very, very talented player, and let's see how he gets on this year. We mentioned Cathal O'Reilly. Paddy McCormack was on the panel for the All-Ireland final last year. 2 goals in the All-Ireland under-20 final as well. He's in there with his brother Ray. And we've seen him get game time already in the pre-season tournaments. So let's see what happens there with Paddy McCormack. Obviously, huge potential in Paddy McCormack. Real flair player. A player that does things differently is how you'd kind of describe Paddy McCormack, but really strong in the air. And that kind of under-20 full forward line last year of Paddy McCormack, Oisin O'Donoghue and Darren McCarthy is an exciting kind of one. So let's see how that progresses this year and the next couple of years as well. Stephen Tobin, we mentioned him as well. Probably worth mentioning, he got that knee injury in the county final. I don't think it was the full whack or anything like that, so I think he's probably back training. You'd imagine. I'm again not too sure, but hopefully we see him sooner rather than later. Elsewhere, other new names: Kevin McCarthy, the older brother of Dara. If you're an avid listener of this podcast, you know I'm a big fan of how Kevin McCarthy plays hurling. Direct runner, strong on the ball, really good in around rucks, really good vision, and kind of a real handy player is how you kind of describe Kevin McCarthy, and tough as nails as well. So it's going to be good to see. It's great to see him in there, and I'm intrigued to see how he gets on at the next level. I saw him play against, was it Limerick in Feathertown Park, in that Champions Under Lights game for the Dylan Quirk Foundation. I think it was that game he played in, and he played that day like how he plays for Toomey Vara. That centre forward role, really comfortable, really clever at picking up pockets of space and involved in the action a lot. So Kevin McCarthy, another one of the new additions. We'll go here. Any other new ones? Cathal English, we mentioned him, similar to Joe Egan, half forward. He scored that scrappy goal, remember, in the under-20 Munster final last year, where the sideline came in and it stopped on the line and he had to kind of hold the defender's hurley and kick the ball in from about a yard away. That's Cathal English, and it's kind of been talked about him last year as well, maybe unfairly, maybe not, that he's with a junior club, Father Sheehy's operating in the junior championship in South Tipperary. Maybe doesn't get exposed to the level that some of the other lads would, if you're coming from a Holy Cross or a Thurles, a Lockmore, Nina, any of the senior clubs, or even the Premier Intermediate and Intermediate. So it's important, maybe more so for the likes of Cathal English, to get in with the squad and train away and get that high level of hurling into him to kind of help him fulfill that potential that he has. Brian Hogan is back from Lura, son of Ken, of course, the 2019 All-Star Brian Hogan, All-Star goalkeeper away in Australia for a few years. And from what we've seen in the pre-season, doesn't seem to have missed a step whatsoever. So looks really lean, looks really fit, and he's an all-star goalkeeper. We've now have two in the squad, and another really good goalkeeper in Barry Hogan. So that's really interesting. The last couple of years, Tip only had two goalkeepers in there. So even for doing drills and things like that, you nearly always have three traditionally in inter-county squads anyway. So to have the three in there now, and I think there's kind of there's method to this. All three of those goalkeepers are good enough to start in the championship for Tipperary. Now Rhys Shelley is the reigning all-star goalkeeper, so you'd have to put him maybe in the lead. But what it does is Rhys Shelley can't drop the levels now, because he can't be walking into training thinking, I'm all-star goalkeeper, I'll tip away here. And like, he has two very good goalkeepers that are hungry to get that number one jersey off him, and I think that's only a good thing. And I think that's probably the reasoning as well. And I'm not saying Brian Hogan is brought in just to do that. Brian Hogan is going to be fighting for that number one spot and has the ability to take that number one jersey. But that competition between the three lads is only a good thing for Tipperary. So Brian Hogan back in there as well. And one of the last new faces we've two more to go. Keith Ryan from Upper Church Drumban. What a year he's had. Keith Ryan, captain of the Upper Church Drumban team. We saw him on the steps of the Hogan stand after an absolute scandalous game. I was nearly going to do a podcast after that game because it was so crazy, up in Croke Park for the All-Ireland intermediate final against Toreen. And he had a brilliant game that day. He's had a brilliant campaign, and he's a real leader for Upper Church. And Keith Ryan has a bit of pedigree behind him too. He actually did play with the Tip footballers as well in the last couple of years, but 2024 Fitzgibbon Cup winner with Mary I on a team that would have included the likes of Joe Caesar. Conor Hennessy was on that team from Tipperary. Devin Ryan was on that team. There's probably one or two more Tipperary lads that were on that team as well. But that was a talented Mary I team that won the Fitzgibbon, and Keith Ryan was full back. Adam Hogan was on that team from Shane O'Brien was on that team as well. Adam Hogan from Clare and Shane O'Brien from Limerick, and Keith Ryan was full back on that team. So he has that pedigree, and I wouldn't be surprised if now you kind of, on the one hand, you're like, he's been training all the way along, like he might be ready to go, but then on the other hand, you might say he's probably not actually been in the Tipperary squad for the last few weeks, so he's probably not just going to be catapulted into playing straight away. He probably needs a few weeks to get up to speed with exactly what they're doing and things like that. So maybe we won't see him in the next game or two, but certainly someone that can be pushing for a place in the squad, in the team. I've fierce kind of faith in Keith Ryan's ability. And then Aaron Morgan is another one. He himself and Alan Tynan are down in the injured bracket here at the minute. Alan Tynan with that broken collarbone. Not exactly sure of Aaron Morgan's injury. I'll try and find that out for you over the weekend and report back on Monday. But Aaron Morgan, big fan of how his game has developed in the last couple of years. Like, he's developed into a sticky defender, but he's kind of long rangey. He's athletic. He can hurl as well. He's tough. He's younger brother of Craig, if you're not exactly aware, but big fan of Aaron Morgan. And I'm always a fan of seeing players of that level get into the inter-county setup, because you just know the training that they'll be doing in there will bring them on, and you can kind of see them fulfill their potential. Then you're not kind of saying, this lad's missing out, what could he have become, or whatever. You're going to see the best of him now going in there training with the Tipperary senior hurlers, and we'll see what comes out at the end of it. And I have a feeling that he is a real confident hurler, real skillful defender in terms of the skills of defending, and can hurl as well. So let's see what happens with Aaron Morgan. So those are some of the new faces. What do you make of the squad? Let me know. Who do you think missed out? Who do you think can push into a starting lineup on this team? I'll go through the names that are no longer involved, that would have been involved last year, and I'll also go down through some of the lads that were in the training panel, but haven't made the league panel. So Dylan Walsh, of course, dropped off the panel last year. Had a big impact throughout the league last year, and whatever happened last season, he ended up dropping off. The two O'Hallorans, I was very surprised not to see Aaron O'Halloran in particular. I put out a tweet earlier just about the panel, and someone had said that Aaron O'Halloran had dropped himself off. I'm fairly sure Gavin O'Halloran dropped himself off as well, but I'm surprised not to see Aaron O'Halloran. He would have been training with the team all the way along last year. Big part of the under-20 panel, of course, had a big season with Carrick Swan. So surprising not to see him. Danny Slattery from Clounty Rossmore was in the panel the last couple of years. Didn't really see him kind of get that run with Tipperary. He's not involved. Davy Nolan, really good fullback for Gertnahu. Again, didn't really get involved in terms of competitive action, but a really solid player. And again, you could see him kind of come on in ability from being in with the panel the last couple of years. Billy Seymour from Killadangan, not in there. He played a lot of the pre-season games, so they were obviously maybe kind of last chances for him looking back now. We all know Billy Seymour is a real competent player, real good for Killadangan, but kind of sometimes has a little bit of inconsistency where sometimes you're like, wow, Billy Seymour is on form and there's no stopping him. He's putting points over from everywhere, snapping ball out of the sky, that sort of thing. But sometimes that level can drop, and there's such good talent in Tipperary that if your levels drop even a little bit, that there's names coming through that want one of those positions. So he loses out. Joe Fogarty is one that I was actually kind of surprised to see him miss out, because he's one of those players I'd say Liam Cahill really likes, and Joe was really good with Moneygall last year. And yeah, you can see the player that's in him, and he has got some chances with Tipperary. I think he might have played against Laois last year in that All-Ireland preliminary quarter-final, but just hasn't, you never feel he's kind of grabbed it and just had a really good game while he's playing. It showed the level he can play in a match for Tipperary, and that's disappointing, but there's time yet for Joe Fogarty, and I'd have fierce faith in his ability. So hope to see him maybe get back on the squad, because I think he's a really, really good player. Such a good runner with the ball. There's so much things I like about Joe Fogarty's game, but it's a hard panel to make, and we see that with some of the other names. Kieran Cummins had that brilliant campaign with Moycarkey Burris the year before last, let's say, got on the panel last year, and now he's off it this year, but really, really solid player. Conor Bowe, I'm not sure, did he drop himself off? He's another one of those players. Like Conor Bowe played a big part in one of Tipperary's goals. Was it against who was it against last year in the championship? I'm trying to think, or was it in the league? But he played a lot of games with Tip last year. and then just kind of dropped off and wasn't able to really re-establish that place in the panel. So he's no longer involved this year, but really, really talented player. Michael Corcoran, of course, from the Silvermines, not involved. Knee injury the week of the All-Ireland, had a few setbacks in the surgery and things like that, so probably just needs a year to focus on getting himself right, and you'd hope to maybe see him flying fit for Silvermines in 2026, and then maybe see how he gets on getting back into a tip panel for next year. So those are lads that were involved in the panel last year that are no longer involved this year. I think I make that 10 of them. And then we have lads that were in the training squad this year. Mason Cawley of Nina. He's one of the players I was kind of hoping he'd make the squad just to see what he'd be like with that kind of a season of training in behind him. We all know the kind of athletic ability of Mason Cawley and that profile he has of just huge burst of pace, and we saw that in some of those in that game in Feathertown Park against Limerick, where he left Adam English for dead in one of those runs I remember down through the field. So I am disappointed that he's not there, but himself, Tom Delaney, they're both very young players that will have plenty more chances to get into Tipperary panels if they put the head down over the next few years. Tom Delaney is a real class act of a half-back, reads the game so well. So I'd imagine, I'm trying to think, is Tom Delaney still under 20? I don't think he is. I could be wrong there, but I don't think he is. So again, disappointing to see him not involved. Dara Tynan, so similar to Alan Tynan when you see him on the pitch, but he was involved in the training panel, as were the Borlahan duo of Brian Ogo-Dwyer and Charlie Ryan. And Brian Ogo-Dwyer was a real interesting one because we kind of saw in the Premier Intermediate Championship how much of a athlete he is. Like, he's a big fella, well able to win his own ball, and he has speed as well. And yeah, it was interesting to see him in the training panel. Just see, right, let's see what comes of him with a bit of inter-county training, but wasn't to be this year. And Charlie Ryan is still another young man from Borland Duala who didn't make it after being in the training panel. So those are some of the other names, and I do have Sean Ryan written down here. I think is at the Twitter account Tipback, that's a fact. Who was on to me just on thoughts on Sean Ryan not making the squad. I am one of the drivers of the Shawnee Ryan bandwagon. So it is disappointing to not see him involved. He's been so good with Temple-Derry the last few years and was pretty good with Tipperary when he was in there. But for whatever reason, I'm not entirely sure, he hasn't been included. But that is the Tipperary team. What other things have I written down? Yeah, we have some injuries to kind of worry about. So Ronan Maher had off-season surgery. Let me pull back up that panel so you can have a look at that and make sure everything is still all right on the recording end of things. It is. Nothing worse than this if I wasn't recording for the last, what are we talking here, 22 minutes. Injuries, right. So Ronan Maher, he would have had surgery off-season around late November, around that time, I think. So he is around November time anyway. He's probably not going to be back up to fitness till midway through the league. We'll get clarity when we're talking to Liam Call maybe after the match on Saturday about the nature of some of these injuries. But Ronan Maher, we mentioned Alan Tynan with the collarbone. We mentioned Aaron Morgan there as well. Not exactly sure the nature of his injury. A few other players you mightn't see for a while. John McGrath, he got married in the off-season. Honeymoons, things like that, maybe slowly getting back up to speed. I'd be surprised if we saw him in the early rounds of the league. I'd be surprised if we saw, who else had I picked out there? Brian McGrath is someone as well. I think, now he went off with an ankle injury, I think against Kerry in the Munster Hurling League. But with the injury to Ronan Maher, I kind of in my head was thinking, Brian McGrath, this could be his time now to really establish himself in the Tipperary setup. Been in there for the last a good few years at this stage, but really kind of nailed down centre back, playing that Ronan Maher role, whether it be dropping back on a big man. Brian is strong, good in the air, and I could have just seen him being a like for like replacement for Ronan Maher for the early rounds of the league, and it would have given him a chance to break forward. But I'm not sure, was that just a precautionary thing that he was taken off against Kerry that time he tried to play on? So I don't know, he could be back fully fit and that was only a little bit of a knock, or it might be something that robs him of a few weeks, I don't know. But if he is fit, I would be surprised not to see Brian McGrath in the starting 15 this Saturday against Galway. That's just kind of how I see it anyway. Some other kind of noteworthy ones. Gerard O'Connor is someone that was kind of starting a lot of games for the last couple of years, and then kind of after the Cork game in the Munster Championship, I don't think we saw him again in the starting 15. But in fairness to Gerard, this is probably his first pre-season with Tipperary properly. He played a lot of Fitzgibbon with UL in the last couple of years, and this pre-season is probably a big one for Gerard O'Connor because he got dropped off the matchday squad for the second half of last year, and we all kind of know what Gerard O'Connor can do. Like, he has an awful ability, ball striking in the air, real accurate scorer, and it's going to be. I'd have good hope now that this could be a big year for Gerard O'Connor. Just getting that full pre-season, I think that makes a big difference. And he's a player that if he can reach his potential is really, really high, and that would be brilliant for Tipperary. So he's a noteworthy one. Shawnee Kennelly, I was kind of really sickened for Shawnee when he was left off the All-Ireland squad last year. I'm a big fan of Shawnee Kennelly and how he plays the game of hurling. Real skillful player, does things that other lads don't do. He's a scorer of great scores. We've seen it with Moneygall down through the years, so I'd be excited to see him, and hopefully he gets a good run in the league and we see that kind of form. Because remember in the league last year, remember the goal he got against Limerick with that volley. So Shawnee Kennelly is one I'd be excited to see. Trying to see anyone else that particularly jumps off. I am going to talk about some lads that I think are ones to watch this year, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments' time. So those are the names. Josh Keller, that's someone I'm going to talk about in a few minutes as well. So a reminder, like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below your thoughts on the thing as well. So the next thing I want to talk about is Tipperary's schedule. So it's a really busy start to the league for Tipperary. This Saturday against Galway in Semple Stadium at 7 o'clock. Then it is a 8-day turnaround Sunday week, February the 1st, against Offaly in Tullamore. And then it's a 6-day turnaround after that to play Cork in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Saturday night game down in Cork at 7:30 on the 7th. And I just want to check that fixture. There might not be a Tip football match the day after there isn't, so I can have a nice day off on that Sunday, February the 8th. But February the 7th, Tip against Cork. So that's 3 weekends on the bounce. Home to Galway, away to Offaly, away to Cork. 2-week break, home to Limerick. Then we have a weekend off, then back away to Waterford. We're going to be away to Waterford in the championship as well, so that's a noteworthy fixture. And then on a week off after that Waterford game, and then the final game is at home to Kilkenny, Saturday night game on March 21st. So that is, it's a kind of front-loaded schedule-wise for Tipperary. You have Galway, Offaly, Cork, back to back to back. Then you have the 2 weeks off Limerick, week off Waterford, week off Kilkenny. So it's a big 3 weeks for Tipperary. The league, is it the top two go to the final and bottom two get relegated? So for Tipperary, like, you'd really want to be winning your first 2 games anyway to be trying to get into a league final. And it's 2008 since we won the league. We're in the league final last year. Made a big difference to the financial side of things with Tipperary. They mentioned that in the Treasurer's report, Eleanor Lahart's Treasurer report even, that making the league made a big difference financially for Tipperary, making the league finals. So I'm sure it's something they are targeting. And some really good tests in there. It's Division 1A. There's no real gimme matches. Galway, Cork, Limerick, Waterford, Kilkenny, Offaly as well. So that's how it is for Tipperary in the league. So that's the schedule. So a busy start. So that might affect how we see the teams line out. Like, will there be players that play all 3 of those games? I don't think so. Another thing to look out for is last couple of years in the league, you kind of saw Rhys Shelley play a few games, Barry Hogan play a few games. So how will that work out this weekend? That's something we'll probably put to Liam Cahill, because he was kind of rotating throughout the league and then maybe picking one for the championship, depending on how they got on during the league. So will we see that? Will we see a more, like last year in the league, Tip had a kind of settled team, and this time last year we were talking about Tip going into the league saying, right, we want to see a structure where come the end of the league, we all kind of know 13 of the 15 starting players for Tipperary. And we kind of did see that throughout the league, because the year previously, the team was kind of all over the place throughout the league. And then when you came to the championship, you're like, I've no idea who's playing where for Tipperary, who's starting where, or anything like that. That was 2024. Whereas 2025, it was fairly nailed on. You could tell. Now, there was a couple of changes as we went in different positions, but you had a fair idea where everyone was going to play. So will we see that in 2026? Will we see a fairly settled team where we know, right, this is where everyone's playing? Or will we see a bit more experimentation with some of the younger players that are there? Loads to find out in the next couple of days. I'll do probably a TikTok video or something when the team is released. So we'll talk down through that then. So those are some key points that I wanted to bring up. Have anything else? The game versus Galway, what do we want to see? I suppose what we want to see is a victory for Tipperary. And we want to see a good occasion, a big crowd. Liam Callum mentioned in his homecoming how the first round of the league, he wants to see Semple Stadium packed out and kind of become that fortress. He's kind of always on about that, about how he wants Semple Stadium to be a really hard place to come no matter what. So I'd imagine he's really going to be targeting this game on Saturday, and looking to kind of compound Tipperary's progression over the last couple of years and not give up an inch, so to speak. So hopefully a really good crowd there on Saturday night, and it is exciting. There's a buzz building. It's Tuesday at 9:10 in the evening as I'm sitting here in the kitchen talking to you, and there's a buzz starting to build. And I think when I wake up Saturday, I'll probably be thinking, can't wait to go down to Semple Stadium tonight. And isn't that great? So one other thing before we get to some of the ones to watch and little bits like that, and the predicted lineup. I'm going to give a predicted lineup, but I mean, who knows? Do you know, it's what are we, the 20th of January? Who knows what the lineup for the first round of the National League is going to be, but I'll throw something out there anyway, and let me know what you think. Before we get to that, a quick word on that Harty Cup Classic between Nina CBS and Thurles CBS last Saturday. Up in Templederry, sold out crowd, 2,200 was the amount of tickets that were sold. And you know, I'd say if that was on somewhere else, now there was issues with venues in terms of pitch availability and things like that. So if it was on somewhere else with a bigger capacity, it would have went 4,500, 5,000 people, I'd say, at this game. But it really lived up to the expectation. 1 point win for Nina CBS, but so much talent on show on both sides. You know, Ewan Murray, that catch he made at the very end was almost worthy of an equaliser of some sort. I don't think he was fouled, but you nearly give him a free for nearly an advance mark for how good the catch was from that puck out at the very end of the game. Tiernan Ryan got into it in the second half. Ryan Bargery was really, really good for Thurles CBS on the day as well. I probably do have the team sheets done. Yeah, why not? I think I have the team sheets here from when I was commentating on the green hardback. Let me open up that. Yeah, so who else done the damage? Tony Ryan from Killinall got 3 points from play. Clea Minogue on the freeze. Jack Cahill, the line ball he got was class in front of the Nina supporters, and they were trying to put him off, and he gave him one as well. He scored 2 really good line balls. And you know, we saw him with the Tip Miners last year, and just never really set the world alight, to be honest, from what I saw. But that was because he was in a corner forward. But seeing him out the field for Thurles CBS, it really opened my eyes to, God, he's a really, really good hurler, really nice vision. A couple of times he got the ball under pressure, broke the tackle, and then sprayed a lovely ball into the forward. So I think he's that sort of player, more so than stuck in a corner forward. I think you probably get more out of him out around the middle of the field. So really interesting to see how he develops in the next couple of years. For the Nina CBS side of things, you know, it's a really, really exciting team. Loads of good forward talent. Of course, Owen Duhan, the star of the show, 12 points. Patrick Hackett was so good. He scored 2 points, but he contributed much more than the 2 points. It's great to see Billy O'Brien back in full flow. You know, that minor All-Ireland goal in extra time with the 13 men and the swing in the arm celebration. Then he had, I believe he had hip surgeries, kind of serious enough hip surgeries as far as I know. So that's not something that you'd be too confident with seeing happen to a young lad. But he has come back and he looks fitter than he was and more athletic nearly than he was before the surgery. So that's a huge testament to him. And he can be a player for Tipperary, no doubt, in the future. Austin Duff, big fan of his play. Shane Cleary, Darrow Dwyer, down through the middle, really strong team. Patrick Ryan from Bursalee is a huge addition to that team. And I have to mention the Burgess lads. Johnny Grace has just been so good since he's kind of started into this panel. Paul Callan and Joe Dwyer. Ball didn't really fall for them as much in the semi-final as it has in previous games, but both lads are deadly. Like 310 is what Paul Cahallan has scored in this championship, and Joe Dwyer has been battling with injuries in the last 12 months. Kind of broke a bone in his ankle playing with Burgess, and so still kind of battling back from that. But you can see how dangerous he is. He's so quick. If that ball breaks to him, it's danger for the opposition. So it's really great to see the Burgess lads involved from my point of view, and it's great to see Nina CBS back into a Harty Cup final. Of course, the school I went to, and that is going to be Saturday, January the 31st. They lost the toss, so it is going to be in Ennis in Zimmer Biomet Park, so Cusack Park. I'm not getting paid by Zimmer Biomet, so it's on in Cusack Park on Saturday the 31st of January at 1 p.m. And that's the scene of 2 years ago when Andy Hoolan of Moneygall got that late dramatic goal in extra time to win Nina CBS their first ever Harty Cup. So and this is a really, really good Nina CBS team right down through the middle. Patrick McCormick in goals, I think, is a fine goalkeeper too. So and they have good options there coming off the bench as well. Hugo Healy, what a game he had for Nina CBS as well from Killer One McDonough's coming off the bench. So really good squad. Looking forward to that game. We'll talk more about that maybe next week, but just wanted to mention that. What a advertisement for Tipperary underage hurling that game was in Templederry. And Brendan Cummins and his management team were only standing right beside us where we were at the back of the stand when we were commentating on the game. And I'd say they took an awful lot away from Templederry, I'd say, on last Saturday. So that's a little bit on that. So let's get back to the Tipperary team now. And what do we have next? I was going to mention the ones to watch. I'll probably make a little video for social media, TikTok, something you can share where I quickly go down through my ones to watch. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it in the podcast here as well. So I have 5 players that I've just picked out that I think interesting to see how they get on. Now, I could have had more. I did have more, but it's silly if I just name all the new faces and say, oh, these are ones to watch. So I've kind of narrowed it down to 5. The top of the list is Joe Caesar. Joe Caesar got plenty of game time with Tipperary last year, but I think he's going to be pushing for a starting lineup, starting place for Tipperary, or certainly more game time. And I think it's going to be a big league for Joe Caesar. Just a brilliant hurler all around. He's kind of do it all with Holy Cross. Was scoring goals, setting up goals, powering through the middle. Remember some of those goals that they got against Killadangan for Holy Cross down in the Rag, where he was coming through the middle and popping hand passes or finishing himself or taking shots on himself, and really good defender as well. Joe Caesar is someone that I think that could, there's a spot there you feel that he could grasp at. Another one who I'm really interested to see how they get on is Josh Keller. I think a lot of people in Tipperary, Josh got a start against Wexford in the league last year and didn't really get into the game, and you might have been you'd have been forgiven for thinking he's probably not going to be on the panel. Maybe we didn't see him on any of the match panels last year, really, so you're kind of thinking, could he be one of the lads that drop off? And then the county final happened, and he was unbelievable in the county final. Like, he put in just such an amazing performance in terms of his ball carrying. I've nearly identified Josh Keller from seeing, and since that, that's opened my eyes to see, okay, this guy could become something really important here and a player for Tipperary. His size, his ability in the ruck for a big man, like usually big lads, and I know myself, the last place you want the ball is on the ground, but he's really good when the ball is on the ground, coming out of the rucks, and his running ability is really what kind of is his unique selling point, really. He is an overlap creating machine is how I describe Josh Keller. When he gets the ball, he just starts running, and things happen around him and he's able to pop off passes or maybe even go himself. So I'm really interested to see if Josh Keller gets a run here for Tipperary in the league, because it'd be a great story to see his improvement, and he could be a real a prover of my point of getting a year in there training and how that can bring you along. So really interesting to see how Josh Keller gets on. I hope he gets a few chances with Tipperary, at least in the league, because I've become a huge fan of Josh Keller's play style. We mentioned a little bit about Conor Martin already. Will we see him deployed in that full back line as a cornerback? Is this kind of a Robert Doyle 2.0 kind of situation? He's one that you could have in that ones to watch list. Paddy McCormack as well. All he's done with the under-20s, his uniqueness, he does things differently. You could be running through on goal and you're thinking in your head, oh, this is what this player is going to do, and this is what 95% of players to do. But Paddy McCormack is that 5% where he does something different. He sees the game differently. He's a very exciting player to watch, and has that size. He's still a young man. He'll probably put on a bit more size in terms of bulking out and fitting into his frame a bit better in the next couple of years. But Paddy McCormack, another one to watch for Tipperary this year. And number 5 I have down is Keith Ryan, Upper Church Strumban. Real tough, lively defender, can hurl as well. And he's a stopper in a way. That's what you want early in that full back line, is someone who just stops their man. And you could see him progressing into that, even into that starting 15. I don't know. He's just one of those players that he's been on such a run the last couple of years with Upper Church, particularly this year. Fitzgibbon Cup winner, things like that, has that in him. So one to watch. Now, ones to watch doesn't mean this player is going to be in the starting 15 come the first round of the Munster Championship. Ones to watch is just, I'm interested to see what happens with this player this year. Now, there's a few others as well. I've mentioned them already. The likes of a Kevin McCarthy, a Paddy Creedon, a Joe Egan in particular. Like, what are we going to see from Cathal English, Jack Leamy, some of these players? So Aaron Morgan, whenever he gets back to full fitness. So I didn't want to put them all down, because then I'm just going to go down through all the new players in the squad. But those are some ones to watch, I think, for Tipperary in 2026. So maybe we'll revisit that at the end of the season and see where we are. But it is nice to have these things to look back on at the end of the season, to see where the kind of mind frame was at. But that is where we're at on January 20th. Let's go down through the predicted lineup. Now, I mentioned earlier, who knows what the predicted lineup is going to be. So I've gone with Reece Shelley in goals, a full back line of, I have Robert Doyle or Conor Martin. We'll go with Robert Doyle, Owen Connolly and Michael Breen in the full back line for Tipperary. Now, Owen Connolly could switch with Brian O'Mara, who I have named at 6. I have Joe Caesar at 5. I have Sam O'Farrell at 7. I have Willie Connors and Josh Keller in midfield. Conor Stakelum, Andrew Ormond, Jake Morris in the half forward line. Full forward line, Darren McCarthy, Oisin O'Donoghue, and one of Paddy Creedon, Paddy McCormack, or Shawnee Kennelly. Now, you could look at that and say that's a very strong team. Like, I think if we were to look back at last year, I think 4 players started that game against Galway, the first round of the league, who were making their debut. I think Michael Corcoran started that game, Darren McCarthy, Sam O'Farrell, Robert Doyle came on in that game. I'm trying to think, was there anyone else making their debut? There probably was. That my mind is kind of blanking on me a bit. So we could see more. You could see who else could possibly start that game. Like, there's loads of players that could start this game. Of course, all these players. I'm trying to see debutant wise. Could we see a Jack Leamy maybe getting a start? Could we see who else have I down here? The likes of a Keith Ryan that we mentioned, a Kevin McCarthy, so a Paddy Creedon, I mentioned him as one that could start. So a Shawnee Kennelly, I think, did I have him as, Paddy Creedon, Shawnee Kennelly, or Paddy McCormack as ones that could start. So, this could be way off. This could be the team. I don't know, but there's so much variables at this time of the year, especially with the schedule, with the 3 games in 3 weeks. So this might be a strong team that you might say, right, we kind of can't put all these lads in for all 3 of the games, so we need to spread it out a bit better and use them up a little bit better, and maybe play a few this game, maybe don't play them against Offaly, and have as strong a team as possible when you go down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh to play Cork. Who knows? So all I know is I'm now that I've sat here at the kitchen table for the last 44 minutes and talked about it, I can't wait for Saturday night in Galway, in Semple Stadium against Galway. I hope you're there. I hope there's a really good Tip crowd there, and it is on Tip FM as well. If you can't make it, it's on telly as well. But go down to Semple Stadium and get there and cheer on the lads if you can at all. If not, listen to it on the radio if you want to listen to me, myself and Ken Hogan. So that is pretty much it for this week's podcast. 45 minutes. It's great to be back. And the inter-county season is here and we're going to be rolling back into it. As I mentioned, I have a busy weekend this weekend coming with the game on Saturday, and then I'm off to McGovern Park in Ruislip. I was there 2 years ago for the Tip footballers, and I'll be there again on Sunday as well. So maybe we'll get a rare airport podcast or something live from Heathrow on Sunday evening. We'll see how we get on. So that is it for this week's podcast. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, that'll do me a solid. Comment down below. Engagement is always good. And I think we're on 897 subscribers as I'm recording this. So can we hit the 900 mark surely with the help of this video? So if you've enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe, and we'll chat to you Sunday evening possibly, if not Monday. And we'll have a lot to talk back on about the lineup, about how Tip played and everything like that. So the inter-county season is back. We're looking forward to it here in Tipperary. I hope you are too, and we'll talk to you on the next one.